the 2015 performance data form. Before we get started, I'd like to put a couple people on the spot. We want to make sure that our mute and unmute is working. Kathy Kinch, if you're on the line, Gina's going to unmute you. Can you just say hello?
Hello, this is Kathy. Hello?
Great. Yep, we can hear you. Perfect. And then Andrea, Greg, are you on? Gina's going to unmute you as well so we can hear your voice. Okay. So we don't have Andrea, but we have Kathy. Okay. So we'll go through the question section after the questions sections after each section of the webinar, and during that time we'll kind of remind everyone how to ask questions using this tool. So we will give everyone a quick refresher. I'd like to start by introducing Leon Lito, who will be saying a few words of welcome.
Okay, thank you. Excuse me, I wanted to welcome you also to this webinar. And as advertised, it's a repeat webinar, and it's dealing with the grantee survey section of the performance data form, commonly known as a grantee survey. We use this data. It's important in a number of ways, but two I'll just go quickly. One is the data goes into the annual report to Congress, and the other element is we get a number of queries for national data on the grantee survey data. So it's not something we're just collecting. It's something that goes towards a purpose. So thank you for all the years that for those of you who've stuck it out doing this. Like the LIHEAP data, I think Melissa's going to talk a little bit about the survey is going to be submitted through OLDC, which you've been doing with the household report, and information will be presented on changes in the grantee survey reporting. We've made training and technical assistance services available to assist LIHEAP grantees in order to accurately report and use LIHEAP performance data in managing your programs. We have contracted, I think, as evidenced by people here today on the phone, with a prize to provide hands-on training and technical assistance. Please make use of their services if needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Leon.
Yep.
So today, Trayvon Braxton from Prize will be doing a lot of the heavy lifting during this presentation, and I'll be helping out where I can. The agenda for the presentation includes completing the form in OLDC. We're going to talk about some critical steps you need to take to complete and submit your form. We're also going to talk about sources of funds, part of the grantee survey. This is the money that is coming into your state for LIHEAP. We're also going to talk about the uses of funds, which is how you use that money. We're not only going to talk about requirements and common issues in the reporting, but we're also going to talk about some of the validation checks that you'll see as you're moving through OLDC and that occur after your report has been submitted. We'll make sure that we highlight the reporting schedule and deadlines. We'll talk about resources that are available to all of you as you need technical assistance as you're moving through this. And we'll take questions throughout the webinar. So you can ask at the end of a section or at the end of the webinar, whatever you'd like. So the performance data form was approved in November of 2014. Many of you, those of you who've been around for a long time, have always done the grantee survey, and that's the first portion of this new performance data form. The performance measures is the second section, and optional performance measures is the third section. So what this does is takes a previous report and combines it with some new reporting requirements around performance measurement. This particular webinar will focus on the grantee survey portion. the grantee survey is the only piece that's required this year, must be completed by February 4th. And so we're going to spend time talking about that today. It is important to highlight that even though grantees aren't required to report performance measures until next January, we are encouraging grantees to go ahead and report anything that they might have now so that Apprise can help you work through any challenges or issues or help you make tweaks before required reporting happens next year. So we encourage you to put whatever data you have in there and just as a test run, both for Apprise and OCS, as well as any TNTA we can help provide. Trayvon?
All right, great. Thank you, Melissa. So first, I just want to welcome everybody again to today's webinar. And so as Melissa had mentioned, the first section that we'll be discussing today is kind of a brief review of how grantees can go about submitting and completing their grantee survey for fiscal year 2015. And before we did that, we just wanted to make a brief note, or a quick note, that OCS has conducted some previous webinars that provide information on how you can go about setting up and accessing OLDC. So for those who might need a brief refresher or might be new, LIHEAP grantees or directors, for example, you can look on the ACF website using the following link and review some of the webinars they have on there if you have any questions for accessing OLDC. And kind of with that, we just wanted to make, just provide everyone also with a brief reminder that your OLDC passwords need to be changed every 60 days. And so we would encourage all grantees as they kind of prepare, if you haven't begun looking at your grantee survey, that as you prepare to start working on that you just log into OLDC to make sure that your password is still current. So that if you do need to, in fact, have your password reset and access restored to your account, you can do that prior to the submission deadline. So there's no time crushes or any hassle and additional anxiety that comes with that. And again, if you have any questions regarding OLDC, the support desk is available, and we have provided their email address as well as phone number. And so if you have any questions with or issues with accessing OLDC or password issues or anything like that, definitely feel free to reach out to them, and they've been pretty responsive, so they should be pretty quick to follow up and provide any assistance that you need. All right, great. So first, I guess kind of going into navigating and beginning the process of completing your fiscal year 2015 grantee survey. So the process for navigating to the form is actually very similar to how you did it in 2014. And so you'll start off by logging into OLDC, and then on the grantee selection page, to access your form, you will just navigate and select the performance data form in the report name field, and you can just select enter. And this will take you to the reporting period page, and you can, to access your 2015 report, you would just select the radio next to the fiscal year 2015 reporting period. So that would be the highlighted box of the October 1st, 2014 to September 30th, 2015. And then you can just select the new edit revised report under step 2, and then select enter. And for any reason, if your form isn't available in OLDC, you can just reach out to your OCS liaison and notify them, and they'll unlock the form and make it available for you. Okay, great. And so once you navigate to the 2015 form, as kind of Melissa mentioned, you'll be taken to the performance data form, which is split into 3 different sections. And as we briefly had mentioned, the first section will be the grantee survey section, and it'll be titled Section 1 Grantee Survey. And then you'll also see the sections for the performance measures section, which is Section 2 LIHEAP performance measures, as well as the optional performance measures section, which is Section 3. And so, as we mentioned, the grantee survey is the only section of the form that is required for fiscal year 2015. However, again, as Melissa mentioned, any grantees that would like to input any performance measures data, even though it's optional for this year, OCS is definitely encouraging of grantees doing so if you want to do any of that prior to that. So yeah, so to navigate again to the grantee survey, you'll just go to section 1 and in the edit section box, you'll just choose edit section in the drop-down menu and then click the go button, and that'll direct you to the form. And this is just a screenshot of what you will see once you log in and access your grantee survey. And so once you do this, this will initialize the form if it is not already been initialized. And so at this point, the form will now be available for you to edit. And so you can input your data, save it periodically as needed, validate the form to see any potential reporting issues that might be, I guess, applicable. And then once you're ready, you can certify the form and then submit it. And here's just a brief summary to kind of help lay out that process, and hopefully will be helpful as you go through or begin the process of completing your form. So as we mentioned, you'll just navigate to the form by selecting the performance data form, and then you'll just, once you navigate to the 2015 performance data form, you just select the new edit revise report to initialize the form, and then you can fill out section 1, which is the grantee survey, and you will have the save option to kind of retain your data as you go along. And this is something that we would definitely encourage grantees to make a good practice, just in case. So periodic save, if you're going to be working on it for an extended period of time, just to make sure all your data is saved, as well as if you, for example, if you needed to kind of go off and come back to complete your form later, so maybe go and just verify some data with your fiscal staff prior to completing the form. You just want to make sure you frequently save just so that all that data is retained and saved. And then again, once you have inputted the data, you can click the validate button to run the validation checks, and we'll go into some of the specific checks for the grantee survey a little later on. But we just want to highlight that when you select the validate button, the validations will run on all sections of the form. And so even the section that you might not have completed, you may get a few warnings related to that, but it'll also run on the ones on the data that you have submitted, and so you can kind of use that to, as you kind of work through completing the form, just to check the data and resolve any potential issues as you go along. And then once you're finished inputting your data and validating, you can click Certify to apply the signature of the authorizing agent, and then click Submit when you are completed. And that will be, just want to stress that the submitting is actually the official completion of your form, and so until it's submitted to OCS, your form is not technically considered submitted. So you just want to make sure that once you have completed, you have selected the submit button, just so that your form will be considered as submitted and on time before the deadline. All right, great. And so here's just a quick slide kind of providing a brief overview of the review process that we go through. And so after grantees have submitted their 2015 performance data forms, Apprise will conduct a review of grantees' data in the grantee survey, just to identify any potential reporting issues that may need to be revised by grantees. And then once we've kind of identified any potential reporting issues and followed up with the grantee confirm, which reporting issues may need to be revised, the grantee will then be able to go back and submit a revision or resubmit their 2015 performance data form. And one thing that I know that David would like us to reiterate is that prior to following up regarding any issues, Apprise definitely makes sure to review state's fiscal year 2015 model plan, just to confirm if any potential issues or inconsistencies are explained by any information you have in that. So we try to do our due diligence in reviewing and seeing if there is information that has already been provided to by the state to address any potential issues prior to kind of wasting your valuable time by following up on an unnecessary issue. And here's just a nice graphic that I think was developed by OCS to kind of show the submission and revision process. And so kind of staying, as you can see on the left-hand side, which kind of reviews the submission process. Once you're in the form, you'll input the data. And then again, you'll save it to retain your information periodically while completing the form. You can run the validation checks to identify any potential reporting issues. And when you do that, that will also save the data. And then once you're completed, again, you'll certify the form to apply the signature of your authorizing agent, and then officially submit the form to ACF using the submit button. And then after our review, if needed, we'll go into, if any revisions are needed, then you would go into the process of unsubmitting the form and resubmitting it. And we'll go into the steps for revising your form now. So yeah, so as we said, once we have conducted our review and confirmed any necessary revisions that are needed to your form, grantees can then go in and revise and resubmit their form. And so to revise your form, you can, or to access a form that's already been submitted, to edit it, you can just select the, I guess go through the similar process that we just went over previously for submitting the form. So you just go and select the form, the appropriate form in OLDC, and then instead of using, instead of as previously where you used the new edit revise, this time you will select the view print status approve report option under step 2 and click enter. And this will take you to the report form status page. And so this kind of provides a status of any potential versions or revisions that you may have submitted, as well as your the previous submitted forms that you have. And so to unsubmit your form, you will click the unsubmit report button, and then you can click either the edit original, or in this case, if you have, for example, submitted a revision and you just need to edit your revision, you can select the edit revision, whichever number is applicable. And then you can click the uncertify, which, and then the form will be available for you to edit. And so here's just another brief summary of kind of the resubmission process, which also may be helpful if you need that, following our review and identification of any revisions that are necessary. And so again, you'll first just navigate to the fiscal year 2014 performance data form in OLDC. You'll select the view print status approve report option. And then once you're directed to the report form status page, you'll click unsubmit report, edit original, and then uncertify the form. And at that point, you'll be able to edit and resubmit any your form in OLDC. And here's just another kind of brief overview that takes into account the entire process. Okay, great. And so one thing that we know that may be useful or necessary for grantees during the completion of their 2015 performance data form is to reference their the data from the 2014 grantee survey. And as well as grantees may just wish to print off the data, for other fiscal purposes that they may have. And so in order to navigate to your fiscal year 2014 grantee survey, what you can do is, so to view your 2014 report, you can just go and select the radio button for the fiscal year 2014 reporting period on the reporting selection page. So, similar to when you did or selected the fiscal year 2015 report, you go to the reporting period page, and this time you'll select the reporting period for fiscal year 2014. And then you can select the view print status approve report and click enter. And then once you're directed to the report form status page, you can either click the View Original button to to view your fiscal year 2014 form in OLDC, or if you'd like to print it off so you have a hard copy of it, you can just select the click the Go button under the Print column on the right-hand side of the page, and that'll let you print it off as a PDF. And so at this point, we will turn it over to Melissa, and I guess we'll turn it over for grantees to ask any questions they may have. And so I will turn things over for Melissa to field that.
Great. So Trayvon just went over all of the kind of critical pieces of entering your report in OLDC. And so if you have any questions, there's the slide on your screen shows you some different ways to ask them. The first is to go ahead and use the chat box if you'd like. That's one way to do it. And Gina's highlighting that right now. You can also click the button to raise your hand, which is this hand sign. And if you click that, Gina will unmute you so that you can speak on the phone. You will need to have put in your audio PIN. And so if you're already listening but didn't enter an audio PIN, you'll see it up at the top. In this case, it's 85. And some people said, well, we tried to enter, it doesn't work. It's really important to press the pound sign, the number, and then the pound sign again. And it will sound weird when you do it, but it will get you through. So if anyone has questions, you can raise your hand or type something in the chat, and Gina will let us know. Gina, are there any questions?
So I think Gina may be having a few issues with her mic right now, but I think we had one question from Ms. Tiffany Robinson. And I believe her question is, give me one second. So the performance data form is due every year around January. And so that's actually a really good question. So yes, generally the grantee survey or the performance data form will be due typically at the end of January, so around January 30 or 31st. However, for this year, kind of given some of the I guess the issues with some of the household report and the potential delays with that, OCS has moved the submission deadline for the performance data form for this year to February 4th. And so just for this year, it'll be moved to February 4th, but as Ms. Robinson highlighted, for 2017 and going forward, OCS will generally, I guess, target the end of January as the submission deadline for grantees. So great question. And I believe that's the only question we have for the moment, Melissa.
Great. So Trayvon next is going to go over the sources of funds. And so this includes those data fields in the grantee survey that are pre-populated for your state. He's going to address common issues that grantees run into when addressing sources of funds, and particularly going to highlight carryover amounts from 2014, as that's probably one of the most prominent challenges that grantees face in terms of their grantee survey. So Trayvon?
All right. So yeah, so as Melissa mentioned, we're going to go through the sources of use or the sources of funds section of the form and just provide a brief overview of that. And so the grantee section or grantee survey section of the form has certain fields that are populated or pre-populated and other fields that are editable. And so for the fiscal year 2015 form, all fields except for the oil overcharge field will be pre-populated once you initialize the form. And as far as being able to edit some of those fields, so as we mentioned, the oil overcharge will be one of the fields, as well as the carryover funds fields are available for grantees to edit if any necessary changes are needed to any of the values that have been pre-populated. And so one thing that we just wanted to note is that for fiscal year 2015, grantees pre-populated carryover amount from the previous fiscal year should reflect the carryover amount that was reported in your fiscal year 2014 grantee survey. And so one thing we wanted to highlight is that if that value in particular requires, or if you notice that that value needs to be edited or is incorrect, then we would just ask the grantees just contact the prize to notify of that, and then we can assist you in going through and making any necessary revisions to your 2014 grantee survey. And then the other thing to highlight is if you think any of the pre-populated fields that, or the values in any of the other pre-populated fields are incorrect, then you should contact your OCS liaison so that they can edit those, because most of them will be locked and you won't be able to edit them, and so you'll need to contact your OCS liaison if you feel that any of those values are incorrect and need to be changed. Okay, and so one thing that we want to highlight for this year is that prior to completing the grantee survey section of your fiscal year 2015 grantee survey, a prize would advise grantees to first review their fiscal year 2014 and fiscal year 2015 carryover and reallotment reports, just to make sure that the carryover values reflected in those forms are finalized and reflect kind of the finalized value developed by your fiscal department. This will just ensure that you're able to report the finalized value, one, in your fiscal year 2015 grantee survey, and that will make sure that there's just consistency in that all the carryover amounts across your forms, both your carryover and reallotment reports, as well as your fiscal year 2015 grantee survey, are consistent, which will prevent any warnings occurring in OLDC and will also prevent any necessary follow-up contact from a prize. So we just wanted to highlight that a good potential process to go through is to kind of work through your carryover and reallotment report and then go into completing your fiscal year 2015 grantee survey. Okay, and then we just wanted to go over a few common issues that we've identified and grantees have previously experienced with the sources of use function, the sources of funds, excuse me, section of the grantee survey. And so two common issues, or one of the common issues that grantees have experiences situations in which the grantee did not draw down all available LIHEAP funds, or a grantee returned LIHEAP funds to the federal government or OCS, in which cases grantees should address these issues in the uses of fund part of the grantee survey, and they should also include a note. And as you may know, in many cases like this will be highlighted by potentially the sources of funds, the total sources of funds not equaling the uses of funds, which we'll talk about a little bit further later on in the webinar. But situations like that are usually a key highlight that one of these situations may be occurring. And so if that's the case, you should just address that in uses of fund and make sure that you include a note, and that'll prevent any necessary confusion or necessary follow-up from a prize. Great. And so another big issue which we kind of have touched on a little bit is just inconsistencies in the carryover reported in your fiscal year 2014 grantee survey versus your 2015 grantee survey. And so as we mentioned before, it's really important to make sure that you go through and make sure that all carryover amounts are finalized prior to completing your grantee survey, just to hopefully just to make sure that all your carryover amounts are consistent and to prevent any necessary warning messages. And so one thing that grantees may want to check, as we said before, is just to confirm that the carryover amount reported in your 2014 grantee survey matches in your 2014 uses of funds section of your grantee survey, which, as you can see on the left-hand side, is line item 7 under section 4, the uses of funds. We just want to make sure that that value matches the reported value of funds carried over from the previous fiscal year in your fiscal year 2015 grantee survey in the sources of funds section of the form. And then similar to that, as we mentioned before, you also want to make sure that the carryover reported in your 2014 carryover and reallotment report, which was submitted on August 1st of 2014, that the carryover amount in that also matches the reported carryover amount in your fiscal year 2015, grantee survey sources of funds section. And here's an illustration of how those two fields should match. And here's just a summary graphic that we kind of developed. I know for some people it's easier, and I'm one of them, it's easier to see kind of a visual representation rather than kind of text. And so here's a hopefully helpful graphic that we developed to kind of show that the carryover amount in your 2014 carryover allotment report should match the carryover amount in your 2014 grantee survey uses of funds section. And then you'll use those values to make sure that they're consistent with the reported carryover and reallotment, the reported carryover amount in your fiscal year 2015 grantee survey sources of funds section. Then just one other final thing to highlight is that all carryover that you, all carryover from fiscal year 2014 that you report should not include funds obligated in fiscal year 2014, but not used until fiscal year 2015. So basically, you just want to make sure that any reported carryover amounts are unobligated funds, so not funds that have already been obligated for some other purpose in fiscal year 2014. All right, and then we'll just have some, open it up to grantees to ask any questions that you may have about Section 2. And so I'll turn things over to Melissa.
Great. Once again, you can raise your hand, and Gina will make sure that you're unmuted and can ask a question if you're on your telephone. Or if you would prefer, you can use the chat box where it says enter a question for staff or type message here. You can type your question in there.
Shirley, Ms. Mason has a question. And so Shirley, you can pose your question to the group. Are you there, Shirley?
I am so sorry. I was still on mute.
No problem at all.
Just to confirm, if I need to change a value in one of the pre-populated fields, what should I do?
Okay, yeah, great question. So as we had mentioned at the beginning of this section, if any of the pre-populated fields in the sources of use section of your grantee survey, or you realize that those values need to be changed, you should just contact your OCS liaison, and then they can help you, make any necessary changes to those. So yeah, so great question, Shirley. I'm glad we
Thank you.
got to reiterate that. And I don't believe there's any other further questions at this time, Melissa.
Great. So Trayvon just talked about sources of funds, so how the money is coming into your program, and now he's going to spend time talking about how your state uses that money. And he's going to hit some important items as they're noted here. We're going to talk a little about nominal benefits, which we touched on in the household report survey, so we're going to talk about how that looks in the grantee survey. Talking about obligation of funds, average benefit reporting and what that looks like, and also the optional data, he'll touch on that, and that's the average benefit by main heating fuel, so that all of you can be thinking about that as you move into next year, and that will become required reporting. And once again, he'll touch on carryover issues and other common issues that grantees face when in the uses of funds section of their grantee survey form.
All right, thank you, Melissa. So yeah, so as Melissa mentioned, the first, I guess, item that we wanted to kind of review for grantees, just so that they're aware and kind of some of the items to just keep in mind as you work through your the completion of your grantee survey. So first is the nominal payments field, and so as you know, a new field was added to the grantee survey last year to allow grantees to report on nominal payments. And then for this year, as you know, the definition of nominal payments has been changed to be defined as any LIHEAP benefit of $50 or less that is allocated or that is used or provided to a client. And so for the fiscal year 2015 grantee survey section, you'll want to make sure that you report nominal payments, which is any LIHEAP benefit of $50 or less, again, under the nominal payments field, which is line 6 under section 4, uses of funds. And just to reiterate, you should only report on the total amount of funds obligated to nominal payments in that field. And then the other, I guess the next item that we want to go over was another new data element that was added last year, and that is question 1. So this was a question that was added to capture information on whether grantees, I guess whether funds that were obligated in fiscal year 2015 were not expended until the subsequent, or will not be expended until the subsequent fiscal year. And so, as you know, many grantees operate their programs where, you know, maybe towards the end of the year, they'll use reserves of their any reserves that they have to carry that over into the next fiscal year. And so we just included this question so that you can just select yes in the drop-down menu to indicate whether or not you do or do not carry over any obligated funds to the, or will be carrying over any obligated funds to the subsequent fiscal year, so fiscal year 2016. And then you can also, oh, sorry about that. So yeah, so, and then you can also include any special cases or any, you know, unique information that you need to in the notes field to describe that process. And then we wanted to make a, I guess, a clarification for the reporting of the average household benefit in the, I guess, section A of section 4, the uses of funds section. And so as you know, the grantee survey section includes a column in which grantees are to report on the average household benefit that LIHEAP clients receive for each type of LIHEAP benefit, for each program component that was operated by the grantees during the fiscal year. And so for fiscal year 2015, we are kind of or OCS is instructing grantees to, if they use or if they include any funds obligated for benefits other than bill payment assistance in the calculation of the average household benefit for any type of LIHEAP assistance. Grantees should include a brief description in the note section of their form just to highlight that. And then kind of related to that, another new question that was added last year is question 2, which is the average benefit calculation. And this is just a question to capture information on whether or not the average benefit that is reported by a grantee is estimated rather than being directly calculated due to some kind of unique aspect or program, some aspect of the grantee's LIHEAP program. And so if there's any, if this is applicable for any grantees, you would just select yes under question 2, and then you can include, or you should include a brief note in the notes section of the form, just kind of highlighting, what aspect of the program led to your office providing an estimated rather than directly calculating their average household benefit. Great. And then finally, as Melissa mentioned, and as many of you are, I'm sure, are aware, the kind of other new data element that was added to the performance data or the grantee survey last year was the bill payment assisted average annual total LIHEAP benefit per household field. And so, as you mentioned, this is optional for 2015, but this field is just to allow grantees to report on the average household benefit provided, or the bill payment assistance, the average bill payment assistance LIHEAP benefit provided to households, and it's broken down by main heating fuel type. And then the one thing to keep in mind if you're reporting that is that grantees should only include households with 12 months of consecutive bill data for both their main fuel and electric data. As you know, this is to align, I guess, in preparation for the new performance measures that will be required for next year, which is why they're optional for this year and will be required for next year. And here's just a visual to identify where the bill payment assisted household average benefit section is. And so again, this field is optional for fiscal year 2015, and but again, we would encourage any grantees that would like to report any data that they may have to do so in their fiscal year 2015 report if they would like to. Great. And again, just to kind of go over some common issues that grantees have experienced in the past with some of the data elements in the use of the fund section. And so one, I guess, significant, not really significant, but one issue that we noticed that occurred or that several grantees encountered was related to the maximum annual dollar income for a 4-person household. And as you know, this there's instances in which this threshold would be inconsistent with the federal poverty guidelines or state median income that are in effect at the start of fiscal year. So as you know, the instructions ask grantees to report the thresholds that are in effect at the beginning of the fiscal year. So for fiscal year 2015, grantees should report on the amounts, or the reported amount should reflect the 2014 HHS poverty guidelines or the 2015 state median income guidelines that were in effect on October 1st, 2014. However, one thing that we would like to note is that so if a grantee's or if a component of a grantee's, or if a component's LIHEAP program component began after the release of the new 2015 HHS poverty or federal poverty guidelines, which are usually released around January or February of the fiscal year, grantees may choose to use the the 2015 poverty guidelines in their reporting of the maximum annual and the reporting of the income threshold for that program component. But if so, we would recommend that, or we would ask grantees to include a note in the note section of their form, just highlighting that so that we're aware, and again, so that'll prevent any necessary follow-up from us. And then, as Melissa mentioned, the other thing we wanted to highlight or to go over is the carryover to fiscal year 2016. So again, another issue that grantees have previously kind of encountered has been inconsistencies in the reported carryover in their, or the reported carryover between their 2015 grantee survey and their 2015 carryover and reallotment report. And so again, just when grantees are completing their form, they should make sure that the carryover amount reported in their 2015 carryover report, for example, on the left-hand side here, it's 617,066, should align with the reported carryover amount in your fiscal year 2015 grantee survey uses of funds, and that'll be line item 7 in the uses of funds section. And so again, we would just encourage everyone to make sure that they review those carryover amounts between their forms and make sure that those are consistent as they work through the form. And here's just another visual graphic to help illustrate that point, and the fact that you want to make sure that the carryover between your 2015 carryover and reallotment report aligns with the carryover that you report in your fiscal year 2015 grantee survey uses of funds section. All right, and at this time we'll open it up to any questions that grantees may have about the uses of funds section of the grantee survey. And again, we'll just hand things over to Melissa, and she'll be able to field any questions you have.
Great. For those of you just joining us, if you want to ask a question, you can type it in the chat box or question box, and you can also click the raise your hand button, and Gina will unmute your line so that you can talk to everyone.
All right, so I think we have a question from Ms. Klug. And so her question is on slide number 38, where we discussed the nominal payments. What should a state do if they don't obligate funds for benefits of $50 or less, but instead, but might issue a regular benefit of less than $50?
So I'm just going to take a run at this. The new reporting requirement is that any payment, $50 or less, whether it's a regular payment, a crisis payment, any kind of payment, $50 or less, is now defined as a nominal payment. So that is going to require, for some of you, some changes to your system or the way that you collect and report that data. But anything less than 50 is nominal, regardless of whether it's regular, crisis, or heat and eat, any of those. Trayvon, would you add anything to that?
I would agree with that. Just to clarify, I think, just to make sure that hopefully clarifying this question. So I think she may be asking, what should a grantee do if they don't obligate funds for $50 or benefits of $50 or less explicitly? Okay, and I think she just sent a clarification. So she said, for example, in Wisconsin, they don't obligate funds to nominal benefits, but they, in their allocation of benefits, they will expend benefits that are less than $50. And so I think she's asking how they would go about reporting on benefits that weren't obligated as going to benefits of $50 or less previously, but that in the course of operating their program, they issued a benefit of $50 or less. And so I think this may, yeah, Melissa.
Let me just ask one more clarifying question. So the client comes in and you tell them that they can have a benefit up to $200, and you've technically obligated $200 to the client, and for whatever reason you only end up actually spending $50. Is that what is being asked?
I believe so, but Ms. Klug, if you could just clarify if Melissa's on the right track. Okay, and I think Jane has raised her hand, and so we'll. Hi, Jane.
Hi. Yeah, Barbara and I are together.
Okay.
So, Melissa, your question, frankly, we will actually calculate benefits that are $50 or less, just a regular heating assistance benefit. And so, yes, we will have to make an adjustment to our household report, that we understand, but really what our question is, when it comes to the grantee survey component, how are we defining obligated? We don't obligate funds. It's all just part of our regular benefit issuance.
So yeah, we wouldn't know how many how many benefits were at 50 or less. I guess we could, for 2015, we could, run a query and look at it that way. But they're not obligated that way. It's expended based on their income and their energy burden. It's not an obligated set amount. It's an expended amount based on our formula.
I heard you. I just don't have a quick.
We'll send, this is David, we'll send follow-up information on that, but my expectation is the answer we'll get from the Office of Community Services is that money spent on nominal benefits goes under, not money spent on benefits that are called nominal benefits based on their definition will have to go under spending for nominal benefits. But we will double check with the Office of Community Services on that, and we will issue supplemental information to grantees.
Thank you, David.
Okay, and I think we have another question from Ms. Robinson about nominal payments. And so her question is, so nominal payments, I think in North Carolina, nominal payments of $50 or less are kind of issued through their weatherization program as well as their some of their crisis programs. I think there are other crisis programs like HARP crisis or LIHEAP. And I think she just wanted a clarification on whether or not the nominal payments across those different programs should be identified and categorized as or reported as nominal payments. And so hopefully I'm understanding that right, but just to, okay, great. So just to kind of go on that, then the answer to your question is yes. So as Melissa mentioned, in your reporting of nominal payments, you should include any payment or benefit of $50 or less as a nominal payment, regardless of the the type of or the program component that it's issued from. So yeah, so $50 benefit in weatherization versus your crisis program versus a regular benefit would all classify as a nominal payment. And we, Apprise issued a brief guidance document on nominal payments last week, just to provide some recommendations and some assistance to grantees with nominal payments reporting. And so that might be a good document to kind of refer to as you consider your own LIHEAP program in your own specific situations and how you might go about reporting those. Enterprise is always available as well as OCS to answer any other questions that you may have about nominal payments or reporting.
Trayvon, I'm going to ask Leon to jump in here, but Tiffany mentions weatherization, and if the funds are transferred from LIHEAP to weatherization, I do not believe, I would expect that OCS would not expect you to try to track which clients of weatherization only got $45 worth of LIHEAP funds. I think that they would probably find it sufficient to say you transferred the money to weatherization, those are weatherization funds. Trayvon is correct that if somebody gets a $40 regular heating benefit and a $40 crisis benefit, those are both nominal payments. But I think if you've transferred money to your weatherization department, I would think that the OCS would simply consider that as money transferred to weatherization, and you don't need to back out the nominal payment component of that if they happen to spend less than $50 on one household. Leon, does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it makes sense, but you know, we'll have to discuss that a little further. But on the face of it, you're right. You seem to be very correct in that.
All right, thank you, David and Leon, for clarifying that for me. And I apologize for that for misspeaking there. All right. I believe we may have a question from Ms. Sheila Knight, and so I will unmute your line, and if you would like to pose your question to the group, Ms. Knight.
Yes, I'm a little confused by the response regarding the North Carolina weatherization program, because we are strictly a service program and we do not provide any financial assistance to any of the clients through the weatherization program. So I'm a little confused about the response to the question about the nominal payments.
Again, our expectation is that OCS will say if one use of funds was for weatherization, you simply report the amount you moved from the LIHEAP program to weatherization and the number of households that were served, and that our preliminary answers do not consider what's a nominal benefit. I agree with. So
what I'm saying is that we don't provide any form of payments to weatherization or HOP clients. It is strictly a service performed, not any type of financial benefit.
No, but yes, but again, I think what OCS is considering is one benefit that you give to a client is a bill assistance benefit of $100. Another benefit.
That's what I'm saying. We don't do that. We don't do that through the North Carolina weatherization.
Another benefit that you do give is you install an air conditioner that costs $250.
Okay, so when you break it down, the cost for the service provided, we need to look at that as well. You're saying that.
In general, yeah. In general, you need to look at what the financial cost of what was given to the client was. But again, if what you've done is you've taken funds from your LIHEAP program and put them into a weatherization program, I would not think it's appropriate to try to track exactly what was spent for each client in that case, because there usually are multiple sources of funds that go into the clients, and it gets pretty complicated to try to deal with that.
Okay, all right, thank you.
We will furnish you follow-up guidance on that.
Okay, thank you.
And I believe there are no further questions at this time.
This is Melissa. I just want to emphasize that the nominal benefits piece for both the household report and the grantee survey is new this year, as you all know. And with any new guidance, we're going to hit a ton of questions. Each one of you can probably name a different scenario in your state of, is this nominal? Is this nominal? What do we count? What do we need to look at? And Apprise did issue some guidance, but we're very aware that there are probably lots more questions. And I would really encourage you to give Trayvon or I, or even your OCS liaison a call and ask those questions instead of spending a lot of time struggling to interpret and apply the new rule to your specific situations, it not only will save you time, hopefully, but it will also help us to identify areas where we need to provide more guidance or more training and technical assistance. So this is new to all of us, and sometimes co-struggling can be beneficial for everyone. So I just want to, as Trayvon mentioned, encourage you to reach out and ask questions. So the next section is uses of funds and the validation. So we just talked about some of the common issues in reporting uses of funds. And as Trayvon mentioned early on, OLDC goes through a series of validations that will check your data and give you warnings and errors. And so he's going to go through some of those things that will trigger a warning or an error message and ask you to double check your data or even require you to fix it before submitting. He's also going to talk about some of the manual validations. OLDC does some, and then Apprise, once they get your report, does some more sophisticated validations to also just double check your data. And so he'll talk about both of those, just so that you all are aware of what's being looked at and how your data is being viewed so that you can anticipate.
Okay, great. Thank you, Melissa. So as Melissa mentioned, we are just going to kind of go over or provide an overview of some of the current validations that are in OLDC for the grantee survey, as well as some of the validation checks that Apprise runs kind of on the back end of things. And the first thing I guess we just want to highlight is, as many of you know, there are two types of kind of error messages or warning messages that you'll receive in OLDC. The first are error messages, which indicate data that must be corrected before a state will be able to submit their grantee survey in OLDC. And then the other are warning messages, which kind of indicate data that might need to be corrected, but it also could be that there is kind of an appropriate reason for that inconsistency. And so the grantee should just include a note in their form explaining that. And so again, providing notes in those situations will be good to help prevent any necessary follow-up from Apprise, and also will allow us to make sure that we can just accurately and correctly characterize your program and the annual report to Congress. So the first validation check that we're kind of going to go over is again some of the validation checks that compare the data between your fiscal year 2015 grantee survey with the carryover amount reported in your 2014 and 2015 carryover and realignment report. And so as we have mentioned before, so the amount of carryover reported from fiscal year 2014, so the in the sources of use function, so the carryover amount from the previous fiscal year reported in the sources of use function or the sources of funds section of your fiscal year 2015 grantee survey should match the carryover amount that you report in your 2014, that you reported in your fiscal year 2014 carryover and reallotment report. And then kind of, I guess, alternatively, the amount of carryover that you indicate that you will be carrying over to the next fiscal year, so fiscal year 2016, that you report in the uses of funds section of your fiscal year 2015 grantee survey should match the carryover amount that you reported in your fiscal year 2015 carryover and realignment report. And so again, if there's any inconsistencies between the carryover amounts reported in your grantee survey or in your carryover realignment reports, OLDC will issue a warning. And we have an example of this on the next slide. And so as you can see at the top of the screen, we have another example of the 2014 carryover realignment report versus the 2015 grantee survey. Carryover and realignment report or carryover and reallotment amount reported. So you can see on the left-hand side, the grantee or the state reported carrying over $3,348,056 from fiscal year 2014 to fiscal year 2015, and in their fiscal year 2015 grantee survey sources of funds section, however, they reported only carrying over $1 million from the previous fiscal year. And so in this situation, the grantee would receive the following error, indicating that the amount reported in line 6, all funds carried over from the previous fiscal year under the sources of funds field of their fiscal year 2015 grantee survey, should match the carryover amount reported in their prior year carryover and reallotment report. And so if, in this case, the grantee would want to review the data to make sure, to confirm if there's any necessary changes need to be made, and then update the forms kind of accordingly. And then at the bottom of the page, there's the example of the 2015 carryover reallotment report being compared to the 2015 grantee survey. And so again, as you can see in the, I guess the visual in the bottom left-hand corner, in this case, the grantee reported carrying over $617,066 from fiscal year 2015 to fiscal year 2016 in their 2015 carryover and reallotment report. However, they only reported that they would carry over $500,000 from fiscal year 2015 to fiscal year 2016 in their 2015 grantee survey uses of funds section. And so they would receive, again, a similar warning indicating that the obligated funds carried over into the next year that reported in the uses of funds section of their 2015 grantee survey does not match the amount that they reported in their 2015 carryover and reallotment report. And so again, the grantee would just want to review that and then make any necessary updates to their forms. All right. Another, I guess, new validation check that was also added last year is validation to compare data between the fiscal year 2015 grantee survey with the fiscal year 2015 household report. And so the validation check will just check if, for example, if a state obligates funds for a given type of assistance in their grantee survey, then the state should have assisted households with that particular type, or reported having assisted households with that type of assistance in their 2015 household report. And kind of conversely, if a state assisted households with a given type of assistance in their fiscal year 2015 household report, then the state should have also obligated funds for that particular type of assistance in their 2015 grantee survey. And if any of these issues are, I guess, situations are applicable, then OLDC will issue a similar warning indicating that there's an inconsistency between your household report and fiscal year 2015 grantee survey. And just here's another example to kind of visually illustrate that. So as you can see on the left-hand side, the grantee did not report assisting any households or cooling assistant households, in their fiscal year 2015 household report. However, they reported in their fiscal year 2015 grantee survey that they obligated $506,000, or a little over that, to cooling assistance. And so the grantee would receive the following warning indicating that their household report shows that no households served that their household report shows no households served with cooling assistance, while the grantee survey shows that funds were obligated for cooling assistance benefits. And so again, this would prompt the grantee to review the data that they submitted or inputted and make any necessary edits to their forms to account for this inconsistency. Another new validation check that was added added last year compares data reported in your prior year grantee survey and your current year grantee survey. So in this case, it would be comparing data between your fiscal year 2014 grantee survey and your fiscal year 2015 grantee survey. And so if a state obligates funds for a given type of assistance in fiscal year 2014, then the state should have obligated funds for that type of assistance in fiscal year 2015, or the validation will check to confirm if that is true or not. And then conversely, if a state obligates funds or obligated funds for a particular type of assistance in fiscal year 2015 grantee survey, then the state should have obligated funds for that particular type of assistance in their fiscal year 2014 grantee survey. Meaning if the two forms don't match or there is an inconsistency in that, ODC will issue a warning. And we have, again, another example to illustrate this. So as you can see, at the top, the grantee reported obligating $0 to winter crisis in their fiscal year 2014 grantee survey. However, in fiscal year 2015, in their fiscal year 2015 grantee survey, they reported obligating a little over $9 million to winter crisis. And so in this situation, the grantee would receive a warning indicating that the grantee survey for their prior fiscal year shows that no funds were obligated for winter crisis, and would ask that if this is a new program component, then the grantee should make sure that, so if this is a new program component, then the grantee should make sure that they include a note just to kind of address this. And if there is an inconsistency, then the grantee should go back and make the necessary edits. And kind of as the warning kind of highlighted, the main purpose of this is just to make sure the grantees are reporting on their programs in kind of a consistent manner, and just making sure that the data is as accurate as possible, as well as to kind of account for any changes that grantees may make in their program from year to year, just so that OCS and Apprise is aware of that, and we can again just make sure that we do the best job at characterizing your state's program as accurately as possible in the report to Congress. And then another validation check that we just wanted to kind of highlight, which is a good thing to keep, or a good one to, an important check to keep in mind, is comparing. ODC includes a check that compares the total sources of funds reported in Section 3 of your grantee survey with the total uses of funds reported in Section 4. And as kind of Leon and Melissa highlighted before, the main purpose of the grantee survey is just to kind of reconcile the funds that a grantee received during the fiscal year with how the grantee used those. And so this check is incorporated into ODC to be able to check that the funds that the grantee received, so the total sources of funds that they received, equals the total uses of funds, and this indicates that the grantee has made sure that they have accounted for all the funds that they received for the fiscal year. And again, if these two line items don't match, you will receive the grantee will receive a warning. And here's an example of that. So as you can see on the left-hand side, in the sources of funds section of the fiscal year 2015 grantee survey, the grantee only reported $98,527,129 as the total, as their total LIHEAP allocation for the year. And then, in the uses of funds, the total uses of funds that they have actually only equals $98,300,000, and so there's a discrepancy in the reporting of funds, how the grantee kind of used that additional $200,000 or so of funds. And so the grantee would receive the following error, just indicating that the total use of funds must equal the estimated total use of the funds. And then if if there's any situation, so for example, the grantee didn't draw down funds like we mentioned before, or the grantee returned funds, which might lead to this type of issue, then the grantee would just want to include a note clarifying why there's that slight difference in the sources versus the use of the funds. All right, and so those are kind of the main validations that are incorporated currently into ODC. However, as Melissa mentioned, Apprise also conducts some, slightly more sophisticated validations on the back end, just to kind of, make sure that the data is, accurately reported. And so one of the manual checks that we conduct is comparing the reported income threshold in the grantee's fiscal year 2015 grantee survey to the income threshold that they reported in their 2015 state plan. And so as you can see here, for example, if a grantee reported in their state plan that they use 60% of the state median income as the income threshold for their LIHEAP eligibility, and then we would compare the reported maximum, the reported income threshold in the grantee's fiscal year 2015 grantee survey to make sure that that is aligned with it. And if, say, for example, it's above that threshold, then we would want to just follow up to confirm any potential inconsistency in that. And then another new manual validation that Apprise will be conducting this year will be comparing grantees' data from their fiscal year 2015 state plan to the grantee survey. And so just comparing, so for example, if a state reported providing assistance for a particular type of assistance in their state plan, we will be just doing a check to see if the grantee also reported obligating funds for that particular type of assistance in their grantee survey. And then conversely, if, for example, a state reported obligating funds for a particular type of assistance in their grantee survey, then we would also check to make sure that the grantee reported that they would provide that type of assistance in their state plan. And then again, this is just to make sure that there's consistency across and the reporting across different forms. And here's a visual example of that. So on the left-hand side, the grantee reported providing that they would operate a cooling assistance program in their fiscal year 2015 model plan. However, they did not report obligating any funds for cooling assistance in their fiscal year 2015 grantee survey. And so in a situation like this, we would follow up with the grantee to see if there's any explanation for this inconsistency, or if there's any necessary revisions that need to be made to either of their forms. Okay, and then we'll open it up to the grantees for questions. Any questions that you may have regarding the validation checks that are incorporated into ODC for the grantee survey. And again, I will kind of turn things over to Melissa to kind of field questions.
Great. So once again, you can we can raise your hand, and Gina will unmute you so you can ask a question, or if you don't want to talk, you can go ahead and type your question into the chat box on your screen.
And I don't believe we have any questions right now, Melissa.
Great. So we talked a little bit before about reporting deadlines, but we'll go over them again. The final 2015 household report was due on December 31st. of 2015. And this is a little bit later than it's typically due, so that's something to keep in mind. Similar to the performance data form, all of the deadlines were pushed out a little bit this year, but in the future, the reporting date, I believe, is December 15th and January 30th, and we can verify that. But for this year, it was due on the 31st, and then your performance data form, the grantee survey portion, is required, and it's due in OLDC by February 4th. The sections 2 and 3 of the performance data form, which are the performance measures and optional performance measures, is optional for 2015 for all grantees. But once again, we encourage you, if you have any data that can be entered, to go ahead and do so as kind of a practice run. And it allows us to begin looking at some of the data issues that we may be having, and to help prepare everyone for this data being required next year. There's lots of help out there for people as you're moving through these reports. So your OCS liaisons are always a resource when it comes to questions about accessing your report in OLDC. For example, if something's locked and you need to get in and edit it, your OCS liaison is the person you want to contact. If you have questions about how to report something, your OCS liaison is always a great first stop. And so I would encourage you to contact them with what questions you have. They're also the people you want to go to if you need an extension. And in the past, you know, they've really emphasized to ask for an extension as soon as possible. And when you do request an extension, to let them know when you think you'll have the report done. So that helps them make a better decision. The OLDC Support Center is available for password issues, or if you're having issues accessing OLDC, and they're available till 6 p.m. Eastern every day, Monday through Friday. And then the Apprise team is a great resource. Trayvon, who did an excellent job on this presentation today. Gina, who also, we didn't hear her voice very much, but she's also running this presentation. They're both very accessible and very timely and prompt about getting back to you. And if they don't have answers to your questions, they're great at seeking out the people who do have answers. And so I would really encourage you, if you're struggling, to not spend a lot of time struggling, but to reach out because we likely have an answer or can get you one fairly quickly. My email is also in there, and if I don't know the answer, I will check in with Gina and Trayvon as well. So all three of us are available and ready to help you with whatever you might need through this process. So well, let me just start by saying some people need time to process, and this was a lot of information. So if you have questions afterwards, don't hesitate to shoot us an email or give us a call. But are there any questions now regarding anything in this webinar or regarding the performance data form that's due on February 4th?
I don't believe there's any questions, Melissa.
Okay. Great. Well, we'd like to wish you all a Happy New Year. Thanks for attending today, and we look forward to hearing any further questions you might have. Have a great day.